Today, thanks for stopping by. We're going to go over some footage of getting the trailer frame cleaned up. So the last video, the last video about the trailer frame was going over, destroying the decking and removing that. So we got that taken over to the dump. And now I'm trying to get it to a point where I can actually clean the metal enough that I can get a fresh coat of paint on it. And that's one of my worst favorite things about welding. Woodworking is sanding, and metalworking is sanding and painting. But it needs to be done. So there's the winch that I mentioned that we decided we're not going to use. So I'm trying to get it off of the mount so that I can get the mount cleaned up and then not have to worry about it having additional rust problems before I can put a winch on it. Got to get all the junk wire, old wire cleaned up off it. Got to get all the paint, all the rust, things like that. Actually, I take that back. I didn't get the paint because I figured if there was somewhere that the paint was still sitting, then that was sufficient that it wasn't obviously going to rust because the paint was binding. So I ended up not being able to undo some of the bolts, so I'm just going to use the grinder here to just cut the heads off the bolts, and then I can obviously just replace those when we're ready to put a new winch on there. There's some mounts for the previous jack stand that need to be removed. So the tongue stand originally came with a triangle mount to go in between the two arms of the tongue, and apparently at some point that broke. So instead of replacing it with another one, the previous owner at some point decided they wanted to put one on the side of the tongue, which I mean is okay. Those work pretty well because you get to swing them out of the way. That part's nice, but I don't know. I always just feel like they're off balance, and I never like having them. So although that's technically what we have at the moment. We've for now we've got just a temporary bolt-on jack stand, so we can at least move the trailer around and have it stay where it needs to be. But eventually that'll get replaced with an actual in-tongue stand crank. Although maybe, I don't know. Now that I'm giving that a little bit of thought here, I guess one of the major advantages of having a side mount jack stand, because it swings out of the way, is once you get the trailer hooked up to the truck, there's nothing sticking up from the tongue, so you can actually put the tailgate down. That does have a benefit, and there are times I definitely do that. So maybe, I don't know, guess I'll have to give that some more thought. But since I don't have a stand for that particular mount, I went ahead and removed it. Now I'm working on the rear bumper, which isn't, I mean, it's not exactly much of a bumper. It's a couple different sizes of angle iron welded together, and so be it. I mean, it is what it is. At some point, it's pretty clear that somebody had a pretty heavy load, and it was weighed down, and the truck was obviously not at the right angle, so the back end of the trailer was horribly low, and they must have hit something like a curb or I don't know, had to have been something fairly long because the whole bumper is evenly bent. But I was trying to figure out the best way to do that, and I ended up having to just cut almost all the way through before it really allowed me to bend that. So, and that's okay. I'll end up obviously welding that back together before I put the second coat of paint on, and we'll make sure everything is squared and whatnot. I'm also going to end up adding some pretty heavy bracing to it because I know I'm going to be putting at the very least a 6,000 pound tractor. I plan on, if it's needed, being able to put vehicles on there, so that could be anywhere up to a 6,000 pound truck. And I was so focused on the trailer itself, I didn't even realize that Emily was carrying around a cracked open squash. How odd. Oh, I take that back. I remember that squash. That was a hybrid. It was a zucchini that got pollinated by apparently a spaghetti squash, which is kind of fun because then you get the texture and properties, the physical properties of the spaghetti squash, which flavor of a zucchini. It was actually really, really yummy squash. That was just a little bit surprising. But anyway, so back to things that are on the trailer that either shouldn't be there or need to be moved. There were some weird mounts here at the back. There's several trailer pockets, or bed pockets that are a variety of sizes. You can see here on the side of the trailer there's actually a ratchet strap attachment, which on the corresponding side of the trailer there's actually a heavy-duty pocket for that to go into. So who knows, I might be able to use that one, but a lot of the other stuff's got to go. And I believe I mentioned in a previous video, these fenders definitely have to go. They're super, super cheap and flimsy. And since I'm going to be loading all kinds of logs and heavy equipment, I want something that's going to be able to take a beating. Luckily, they were pretty easy to remove. And then they ended up just getting tossed in the bed of the truck, where they've kind of stayed for the last little while. But the angle grinder it's difficult to get some spots, and I think it'll be once I pull the tires off, when I get ready to do some more work, then I'll be able to do a bit more, and I'll get the actual side mounts pulled off. Yeah, see, like these side wings that the fenders are actually solidly attached to the trailer frame. They were pretty difficult to try and get a good angle on, so I'm gonna go with them again at some point. That way I'll have a clean mount when I put the new fenders on. We actually have all the lighting so far, lighting and wiring, so I can wire everything properly. We'll get the brakes prepped. That's something that'll have to wait till later. There's a few other more pressing issues that will have to come first, but we'll get everything else ready so the trailer is at least functional, and then I can swap out the hubs and brakes later down the road. But we're gonna most likely probably just use cottonwood actually for the trailer deck. I have been trying to study and figure out what the best option is, and there's seems to be two primary thoughts. One is to use white oak because it is very rot resistant and very strong. The other is to use cottonwood because it's cheap. So I think I'm probably going to use cottonwood. Cottonwood actually provides the benefit that it would be fairly light when it's all said and done. The downside to cottonwood would be that I have to take the angle iron on the front of the trailer bed and remove it so that I can have a thicker piece of cottonwood, which isn't necessarily a problem per se. It's just going to be annoying because I don't really want to destroy the angle iron and I don't want to destroy the trailer frame, so it's kind of a little bit of sixes. But that's probably the way that I'm going to go. And I'm trying to clean up the trailer tongue and realizing that I'm throwing an awful lot of sparks underneath the truck, which, there's a gas tank under there. So I figured I better be a little smart and try and deflect some of that. And hey, look, I've got these fenders, so that actually worked pretty well. There was quite a bit of little just pieces of stuff up here. There was actually a mount for the battery box, which I believe is what I'm eliminating at the moment. And I do want to put a toolbox on here, so I'll actually build a steel or maybe an aluminum toolbox that I can lock, and that's actually where the battery and the trailer battery, the trailer disconnect stuff. I just forgot what the little part's actually called, but anyway, so I think I actually went through 3 grinding wheels, or three cutting wheels, while trying to get all of this cleaned up. There's also this big chunk here. I don't know what it was. Right in front of the passenger side tire that I was going to leave there because I figured maybe I could mount something to that, but every time I see it, it's kind of an eyesore. So that's going to end up disappearing. But I was actually really, really excited when I found out these were Dexter axles, so they're good. They're a good brand, good solid axles. I was hoping they were a little heavier duty than they are, but they're 3,500 pounds each, so I mean that's a good size. The total weight that they can bear then is 7,700. Let's try that again. 7,000 pounds, and if I do end up using cottonwood, then that just leaves more weight for the equipment. So the cottonwood. One of the advantages that a lot of heavy equipment users have cited for it is that the cottonwood gives you the ability to bite into it a little bit. Since it's not as hard as the oak, so the treads tend to grip and slide less when you're loading and unloading. That's a pretty big advantage. We don't have to worry too much about the winters and things that we used to in Utah, but ice is still definitely a concern, and you never know where we'll end up taking this trailer and loading logs and whatever. So that's all I got for today. The next step will be to wire brush everything and then paint it. So thank you as always for watching. God bless you and yours. Stay safe out there.